Welcome to the Rockstar Principals Podcast with your hosts, National Distinguished Principal Dr. John Ross and National Digital Principal Dr. Nicholas Indeglio.
All right, welcome back to the Rockstar Principals Podcast. It is National Principals Month, and John and I are excited to be interviewing 3 sitting elementary principals, all from the Downingtown Area School District. We're going to discuss the triumphs, the challenges, and all things related to educational leadership. Super excited to have our team here today. I'm going to introduce you real quick. First, we have the principal of Shamona Creek Elementary School in the Downingtown Area School District, Dr. Melanie Susi. Welcome to the podcast, Mel.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
From Pickering Valley Elementary School, we have Dr. Travis Orth, who is joining us, and excited to have him here today. Hello, Travis.
How we doing, guys?
Everybody's a doctor on our podcast, Travis.
Thank you.
Everyone
appreciate that, Dr. Indeglio.
And finally, we have from Brandywine, Wallace Elementary School, Dr. Sean Wright, who is joining us as well. So, John, how excited are you to have these 3 to celebrate National Principals Month and to talk about elementary principalship?
Well, I'm excited enough that I'm going to let Shawn say hi, since you just introduced him and went right over. Dr. Wright, how are you, sir?
Thank you, Dr. Ross. It's nice to be recognized.
Yeah.
It's nice to be back with you. Dr. Indeglio, as always, it's wonderful to see you once again.
That's a nice sweatshirt. How do I get one of those?
I'll send you one. We got a couple left over.
Do you?
Yeah.
Nice. Still waiting on my Pickering Valley gear. I haven't seen any of that yet, but not holding my breath. So,
hey, Shawn, does this bring flashbacks from when used to be Dr. Indeglio's assistant principal, and you guys had to sit in his booth in his office on a Friday?
I have actually mostly fond memories of that. Yeah.
Mostly
80% of the time, it was wonderful.
To commemorate it, are you sitting in a booth today? You're not yet.
I don't have any of the diner booths here. I miss them though, and I miss I hope we're streaming live in Russia as well, because we had quite a following there. But
We did. For those of our listeners who don't know, when we would broadcast on Friday, Shawn and I, as our parent update, we were doing it via Twitter using their Periscope live feature. Not even recognizing the fact that none of the parents are on Twitter, they're all on Facebook, but we're broadcasting on Periscope. So after the second week we did it, I'm like, Shawn, we've got thousands of people watching. What's going on? And then we checked the analytics, and they were all from Russia. There were thousands of Russian people tuning in to watch our video show. So we started printing out signs in Russian and displaying them during the show with welcome messages and stuff.
I'm surprised you guys weren't implicated in the impeachment process earlier this year. Might have somehow been involved.
I got an email from Burisma. I haven't opened it yet though.
Don't open it. I wouldn't open it, Shawn, if I were you. So Shawn worked with Nick, right, as assistant principal. Travis was an assistant principal with me at LMS, and Melanie was an assistant principal somewhere else.
True,
but she did work with me. She was
your academic advisor, which is
she was academic advisor, right? Could have been your assistant principal, but we're not going to talk about that.
So we got a coaching tree going on here, huh?
That's exactly, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later in one of our questions. But so we're very excited to have all members from the coaching tree with us today. So it's an extra star-studded, packed edition of the Rockstar Principals Podcast. So we're going to roll right into our first question here. And you guys,
can I just interrupt? Can there be, an episode someday where we have my coaching tree and we just tell John Ross stories for the whole episode?
I'm surprised we haven't done that at some point.
You wouldn't want us to tell all John Ross stories.
Yeah, I would.
Because along with the good would also be the ones that would be very, we would air all your laundry.
Listen, it's hanging right up in front of my building right now. I got nothing to hide.
Okay.
All my laundry's out there for everybody to see.
The top 10 Ross bombs.
Limited to 10?
Everyone likes top 10 lists. It just feels like it's the right thing to do at some level. All right. So here's our first question. You guys can fight over who goes first. So we frequently on the podcast have discussed the unique challenges that elementary principals face in this career path. While secondary principals tend to have an assistant principal to rely on and confide in, elementary principals are often alone on an island. How has that challenge affected you, and how have you overcome it?
I can go
I'll
first.
start unless somebody.
Rock, paper, scissors, Sean. No,
Shoot.
go ahead.
It does affect me for sure, and it's less so now than it was last year. And I think last year partially because I was new to the building, so everything was new, and I more or less second guessed everything that I did because I didn't want to misstep. I didn't want to, look like the new guy who doesn't know what he's doing. But ultimately, for me, it was just finding the right. So we have 10 elementary schools in this district, so it was finding the right go-tos and not overburdening the go-tos with questions all the time. And it could have been pragmatic things like, can I move this 5 minutes here? Or is that going to upset anybody? Or big picture, like, a curriculum type decision and not wanting to misstep. Or so anyway, it was just finding the right people and asking a lot of questions, I think, for me. And that process wasn't necessarily easy. It took a few months to realize, who are the folks that you need to go to when you need a question answered immediately. And you don't necessarily want to talk about it for 10 minutes. You just want a real quick answer to make sure I don't misstep. So I think just being willing to ask a lot of questions and then being cognizant of how frequently I would go to, let's just say Mel, for instance, as with a question. I don't want to, burden her because I know she's going through a lot of the same things. So just being vulnerable, I guess, and willing to ask lots of questions because it is kind of lonely at times. I miss not having the big guy constantly to run things by and ultimately know that the buck stopped with him. Well, that's not the case anymore. So yeah, there's a heightened sense of pressure for sure.
All right, so we're out of time. Thanks everybody for joining us today. All right, Sean.
I was with Nick for 4 years. I didn't get to speak much.
Oh, it's terrible. Oh.
No, I think the biggest thing is to lean on mentors. So I was at Lionville with John for 2 years, and leaning back on those individuals that you learn from, and they're just a text away. We're lucky enough to have technology in the age that we live in to shoot a text and get an answer within 20 seconds, just for feedback or just assurance purposes. I think a big piece to the silver lining of what we're going through now is, being able to do what we're doing right now, jump on a Zoom at the drop of a hat and connect and, go process something or just to connect and go through, processes of what we're doing now, because this is all new, bringing kids back in a staggered model. So at the drop of a hat, just being able to reach out to folks that you're, confident in as a leader and being able to just, process it with them and just assure you that you're going in the right direction and making the right decisions.
I would echo what both of you say, and I guess I would just say to take it further, the most important thing for me in this role and being on my own is knowing who I trust, who's in my tight circle, and you also know, when you find who you trust, you also having that trust also means that you can always see where their perspective is coming from. So for me, I know who to reach out to when I feel like I have a question that I want to run by someone who might usually share my perspective or challenge it a little bit, but it's because we trust each other. I know I can have that conversation. I think that's been that's what I've relied on the most being on my own is the people that are in that tight knit group, which most of you, all of you on this phone call, on this Zoom call, knowing that I can reach out and ask a question and run things by you. I think that's what's really gotten me through, honestly.
I think another piece to it too, in a building where you're the sole leader, is to find leaders amongst your staff, and that takes some time too. So be able to, over time, understand who your go-to folks are, who are going to take on leadership roles. Build leaders amongst your staff is huge, and empower them to do that. So you almost have like a pseudo AP or just your go-to people that are going to pick up at the drop of a hat to, do a club or an after-school activity for the best interest of the kids. So just, realizing who your go-to people are within your building too.
Yeah, and I think you hit it too, Travis. Like, you have to invest in those people too, because they may not have had that opportunity before, but the more that you continue to kind of make them part of your tree now, I think that that's an important piece, and it ends up helping the whole building. So I would agree. Incredibly
important that you build your own tree of people that, are your equals, and then people that report to you, because especially when you find that you align with those people, you can put them in charge of stuff and then not have to worry about it, right? You just put them in charge and get out of their way and let them do their thing. And it'll get taken care of the way you want it taken care of.
Which then speaks exactly to, what we've said a million times before, and that is, our most important job in this role is our hiring. The people we actually get a chance to hire. And we can touch on that a little bit later. But you guys all three referenced during your responses to our first question, you kind of talked about the second question and referenced that in your positions, the buck stops here now. So in your first 2 years of tenure, Travis, in your first year, what has been the biggest change going from assistant principal to head principal?
I think that's it. We all talked about it, but for me, that was the biggest, I guess, not shock, because I knew it was going to be there, but it never feels like you're 100% ready when you're put in that position. So it's still something every day that I'm, if I don't take care of that, it's not going to get finished. Or, if I don't answer those couple of heated parent emails that I got, then no one else is. So, it's like trying to keep track of everything. And it kind of goes along with what we talked about before, when you don't have someone else to kind of double, triple check with, you have to be really, really organized in remembering all of the tasks that need to get done, because if they don't get done, it's on you. So, I think as organized as we all try to be, and probably none of us are as organized as Travis, but I think that as organized as I try to be, there's still things that you miss, and there's emails that you forgot to read, or that you need to go back to and you didn't get to, or things that you wake up in the middle of the night and you say, I forgot to do that, and you send yourself an email really quick. But that's the hardest part, is just you're carrying the whole building, and you really don't have anybody to double, triple check yourself with, or help to kind of pick up some of the responsibilities. So now with opening the school up, as Travis said, we're getting ready to open up in a week and a half, in a hybrid model. There's nobody that you're really dividing those tasks up with. So, it's kind of all on you. And I actually just had a conversation yesterday with Jon, and I asked him if he would come and look at my car line with me, just so that I had a second set of eyes on it, in terms of how to keep traffic off the main road, because I have so many kids that are getting picked up from their parents. So just things like that, when you don't have somebody else to run by it, that's probably the most shocking part of it.
For me, I agree, Mel. That's the most stark difference being in this building as opposed to being at DMS is I no longer have a true peer in the building. So, ideas, tasks, IP meetings, all those sorts of things. I'm responsible for all of that, and I love it. I enjoy that level of pressure. I enjoy wearing that hat more than I can say. But it is a little daunting. And I would say at 4 years, when I was with Nick at DMS, I didn't forget IEP meetings. I didn't forget emails. I didn't miss phone calls. I've done more of that this last year and a half, just from the sheer number and volume of responsibilities that I'm fairly organized too. I have all these different systems for maintaining my balance. And I've been missing an email here or there, which I never would have done prior to having this. So it happens. One other noticing, it's not a huge change, but I mentioned this to Nick. It's funny how frequently I'm doing things now that I saw Nick do for 4 years at DMS. Responding to parents, responding to teachers, thinking through problems, thinking through solutions, creating systems that Nick explicitly would do. So it's sort of like becoming your parent in an odd way, and adopting a lot of the things that Nick would do. And at the time, I'd be like, all right, well, that's his way. I'll do things my way when I have a building. But more and more, I'm doing things Nick's way. It's kind of funny. But
yeah, I think
just the pressure now, the pressure from being your own. There's no peer here, you know.
Yeah, the proximity of having somebody on the other side of that wall, you know, just to go in and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking. Am I on the right track, or give me some feedback and help me kind of mold what the approach to this meeting would be, or this response to a parent, or this team meeting that I'm going into where folks are jacked up about a situation that's occurring with a student or a parent or what have you. So it's just the proximity. But again, like I said, the world that we're living in, it has helped me to know that past mentors that I've had, and more specifically John, that at the drop of a hat, I know I'm going to get a response within 5 minutes or less. So even though it's not a physical face-to-face interaction, I know I'm going to get something back, you know, right then and there to help me process what I'm getting myself into. You know, so I think that's the biggest thing, just not having that person within proximity face-to-face, but you're still able to get through it, even though you're you know, in different buildings.
You know, my favorite part of this interview is the notifications sounds that keep happening, kind of showing how many emails we're all getting over the course of this conversation. But I just want to mention too, like you gotta let some of that stuff go. Like you're gonna mess up. Mm-hmm. You're gonna miss an email. There's gonna be times where you miss a meeting, you forget about a meeting, or you have to leave a meeting early. And to me, all that does, by owning that myself, I think that makes me a better leader, because that makes me more patient with my people. Like I recognize that I'm doing that, so now I in turn have to give teachers that same kind of space, right? And understand that there's gonna be times where they drop the ball too, and same thing with kids. There's gonna be times when kids mess up, and my thing always is you just own it. You know, you don't try to skirt the issue, you don't try to cover your butt or anything like that. You just say, oh man, I've messed that one up. Sorry, I'll do better next time. And as long as you're projecting that same kind of patience with your people that you're leading, I don't see how anybody can find fault with that.
And I think too, you know, as time goes on, you get better about giving yourself some grace. You know, yeah. At the beginning, when you're trying to, develop relationships with your staff, and you're also trying to kind of find your way so that the staff knows how you operate and how you do things and what your expectations are and all of those things, you're trying to make an impression on them too and get buy-in from them. So you don't want to miss one thing. And you I put a really high level of pressure on myself last year, for sure. I'm starting to learn right now, especially in the middle of this, that I can't keep going at the pace that I was going at last year, or I'm going to burn out. So I've started to give myself Saturdays back and say, I'm not turning the computer on till Sunday night now. Or, you know, just little things like that. Or when I go home, last night I left here at 7:45, but I left my computer on my desk. So, you know, I am starting to, it just takes a little while, I think, to get to that point, because the pressure's on when you're in your first year to make that impression on your staff and to really set the tone for show them who you are as a leader. And you don't want to drop the ball, you know, so that's when you start to learn that you have no choice but to drop some balls, then you let it go. But at the beginning, I think that's hard. And the other thing I was going to say, you know, even just talking about not having that person here and being on your own, the other thing that's really hard is when things happen, and I know we all have these moments, like with a staff member or an email from a parent that's like really over the top. You don't have that ability to walk next door and just be like, did I get that wrong? Did that just happen the way I feel like it happened? You're relying on your own self and your own perception all the time. And that's hard too, you know, because it's nice when you have the colleagues that you can say, I was interpreting it this way. And they'll say, oh, that's definitely what happened. Or they'll correct you and say, no, I don't think it was really like that. I think that where that person was coming from was, you know, blah, blah, blah. When you don't have that person to run it by, you're just going on your own. You have to be, you really have to take a step back and really think things through, I guess.
To that point, Mel, I think too, I spent 2 years at Lionville, and I think through those 2 years, it built my confidence now where those things it's just second nature with a response, or how am I going to get back? Because I've experienced it and I've processed it with somebody who's been in the game for a long time. So those 2 years are so valuable to my performance now in what I do. So the basics of building the confidence through those 2 years to kind of do it with my eyes closed now, in a sense. By no means am I perfect at it, but it's a lot easier because of that time I spent with somebody that I trust and a mentor that I have now.
We talked about building teacher leaders, and that's, I know, I'm sure it's incredibly important for you guys, but it's really important even when you have assistant principals too, because the teacher lens on things, having Janice here, my one assistant principal, who was in the classroom a little over a year ago. Like there's things I bounce off of her because she's so fresh from the classroom, right? But as the years go on and she's removed from the classroom, you have to have teachers that you can go to and speak frankly and just say, hey, how does this sound? How's this going to come across? Does this make sense? Or, whatever thing you're doing. So it's important to kind of develop leaders in your building, whether you have assistant principals or not, to have people in your building that are in the classroom that can give you that kind of feedback.
So we've talked about the coaching tree a little bit now. So knowing that you've all worked directly with us, from terms of the Rockstar Principal 11 Ps, our 11 Ps of principal leadership, we'd like to know which of the 11 Ps do you believe is the most important to you and why? And then the follow-up is, which of the 11 Ps do you feel like you have the most work still to do to develop them?
Do you need to hear them? Do you need Nick to read them off?
I have the list here.
I got a list.
I could start off on this one. I think what I've learned in my time at in my assistant principal role is the pledge of responsibility. So I still remember explicitly we were in the cafeteria cleaning off tables and sweeping food up off the floor. Because it was an early dismissal day, and the kids are coming and going, everything's our responsibility. And John turned to me, he said, I think it was my first week in that role, and he said, if you don't think this is your responsibility, everything is your responsibility, no matter what it is. If the cafeteria lady's out and you need to work the register, that's what you need to do. If you need to sweep up the floor, that's what you need to do. If you need to clean the tables, that's what you need to do. Now, on the other end of it, you have to be the instructional leader in the building. So no matter what it is underneath that roof, it's all your responsibility. As much as you may not think it is, it is. So I think that's one of the most important, if not the most important on that list for me personally. Patience probably would be on the other end of that. Specifically with, the roles we're in now. We just got done talking about it with, I need to let that email go for a minute, just sit down, be patient, let it go and process it because we're go right now, especially this environment we're in. We want to get answers to folks, but you just got to be patient and process it. And that's one thing that I try to understand and work on each day. But that is difficult when you want to get people answers that they want or that they need.
I'll jump in. I enjoyed reading the 11 and thinking about these 11 and considering them in terms of my own practice. I find them to be just helps me be reflective for myself and what I need, but then also what I need as a leader and how I need to interact and communicate with other people. So, I can make a case for all of these are highly important to me. The two that spoke to me would be proficient placidness, for sure, like the ability to truly remain calm and truly let things roll off your back and not really show that you're upset or highly excitable. I think that's really important. And pluck, because I wasn't exactly sure what it meant. I know it can be a verb or a noun, so it's important you're able to pluck the kid out of the classroom when he needs it, but I don't think that's what you meant. The idea of a spirit or a determined courage is pluck. And I love it. It's just a great noun. I had never really thought about it, but I think you need to have that courage and that spirit, which then would, envelop passion and those sort of ideas. But just having a courageous spirit and then also finding time for yourself. And I learned a lot of that from Nick when I was at DMS. The job is killer. And I think it's ramped up in the middle level, just having been there and seen the amount of emails and the big kid problems you guys faced, and we entertained every single day. It's not exactly easy here at the elementary level, but it's different, and so just the idea of finding time to make sure you can rest and make yourself whole. Because I credit you guys both for being 11 years now in your respective buildings and still going strong. But I could see that the level of burnout could be right around the corner if you don't take time for yourself and be able to remain calm, and find those moments to recharge the battery. So those are my two. But I love the list, guys.
I think that the list is, for me, has been challenged more than ever in the last 8 months, so all those things that about leadership that you have in your head, that you've read, all those tweets you see with the little sayings in them, all of that stuff has been tested since March. And it's more important than ever. I feel like in the middle of chaos is when you either have leadership or you don't. And so for me, there's definitely been some tests to all of the P's. But I think that, Nick, I never worked with you, but I'm sure you practice many of those P's in your practice. Jon, I know a lot of those things I had, kind of within me, but then they were reinforced after working with you and just having those things kind of modeled for me every day. But I think what it comes down to is the things that I try to incorporate every day is it starts with my passion for why I am where I am and why I got into this. And if you can keep bringing it back to that, I think that's what steers me right now in the middle of this chaos. And then also, staying positive all the time. So, and that's been really tested. And I think we can all say that that's been tested so many times in the last, 8 or 9 months, but it's what's pulling me through because it's really easy to go down what I keep calling it to my staff, the rabbit hole of negativity. It's really easy to get sucked in by all the things that aren't going the way that you think they should be going, but when you just make the choice that you're going to stay positive, it kind of releases so much. So those are the two I feel like, and just also, and I know we've all had this conversation separately too, using that proactive thinking. So instead of getting into going down that rabbit hole in all the negative things that could happen, twisting your thought process. Okay, how am I going to work through this and solve this problem? I'm going to call some of my colleagues and we're going to work this problem out and we're going to have the solution in the next hour. And that's the way we're going to do it. Instead of, if you don't push through, be positive and be a problem. I'm adding another one, a problem solver. If you don't become a problem solver in these situations, you get stuck. And then you live in the land of stuck and you can't get stuck. You got to push through, you got to keep going. And I guess if I had to pick one that I feel like was my strength, but I'm still learning, I can make improvements in it, it would be plainness, because I feel like, why is that funny?
Bougie!
Because I can be bougie. No, I think that one thing, no matter how clear you try to be in this situation that's so gray, sometimes you walk away and you're like, I guess I wasn't as clear because there's still questions, So I even find myself when I'm going to draft something for the staff, I write it out and then dissertation style have to go back and make it even more clear and even more clear by adding little words here and there. It's you can never be clear enough right now. So
Mel, I was thinking the same thing in terms of poignant communication. So
Yeah.
I would watch Nick obsess on an email and craft it and spend more time than I thought at the time he should. But his point was, well, if I don't get this right, I'm going to get 50 emails back. But if I get it right, I might only get 5. And it made a lot of sense, right? To make sure the details matter and you include what you need to include, but that's it.
I'll give you one example. I met with every grade level this week to make their schedule of what it's going to look like when we bring kids back. Where are your breaks going to be? when are your breaks going to be for mask breaks outside? How are you going to do snack? I had them think through the entire day. And then I kind of gave every grade level the task of, okay, finish your master schedule. And then we're going to come up with a day where you're going to send like supplies that you need for kids coming back into the building and your schedule, because it's going to change, to the parents. And one thing I overlooked until last night when I was like laying in bed was Friday's schedule is going to be different than Monday through Thursday schedule. So I got to tell them to make a compressed schedule. So today we had a meeting at 9:00 with our building leaders, and I was like, hey, one thing I forgot to tell you. I need a compressed schedule too, and I have a master compressed schedule, but now you're going to need to create that Friday schedule too. So when you send it to your parents, it's going to be a Monday through Thursday schedule, a Friday schedule. You know what I mean? It's just, you're going so fast, you're doing so many things, and you take for granted that they don't know everything. So if it's not so spelled out, you have to check yourself, I guess.
And going back to your positivity piece to that is, in any communication or, I restructure, for example, our data meetings to more so of like a team meeting structure, and really have been utilizing that time over these past several weeks to look at problems that were presented, but with every question that I present the staff with is, what's the solution? So what are we doing to get over this issue that is a problem right now? But instead of just perseverating on the problem, provide a solution. So every single time I present a question, it's always what solutions do you have? Instead of admiring the problem and wasting that 30-minute block of time that we have set aside to collaborate. Use a good majority of that time on solutions rather than a problem. So always keeping everything positive is so important.
So that leads us to our last question, Nick. I'll do the last one because I've been thinking about this. I was an assistant principal when Columbine happened in 1999. I was in my first month as a principal when 9/11 happened in 2001. And I would say that those two things are very similar in terms of impact on a school to what we're experiencing now with COVID. So what lessons are you taking away from this experience? Any positives, anything that you've have been able to capture that you're thinking that is going to improve once this is all over with, is going to improve your craft? Because there were things we learned from Columbine and there were things we learned from 9/11 that are still in place today in schools. So what do you think is going to be the COVID-19 impact moving forward?
I hope for sure it's an increased sense of empathy for everybody. So for parents, for teachers, for children, for administrators, I think everybody has found that it's not easy doing anything in this environment with all the changes taking place. But certainly a renewed understanding and appreciation for what our teachers do, I think is in order. Also, I think efficiency in how we work. I hope we never have another in-person IEP meeting again. I think we can keep Zoom for everything. It's made life so much easier. After the first couple weeks of like kind of muddling through and not being comfortable and liking it, I'm like, this is great. You can really be efficient in that manner. So that's what I kind of hope for.
Yeah, I would have to say, the collaboration piece with, surface level stuff, with the collaboration piece with being able to connect at the drop of a hat. The IEP meetings makes our lives a lot more efficient. It provides parents more options during their lunch break. They could close their door at work and connect, and we could get things done instead of having to have them come to school before, after, during, disrupt their schedules. I think it provides more flexibility for our staff as well. So those pieces that are kind of part of our lives right now will be able to continue. That the piece with empathy, Shawn, is huge. I think, if teachers sat down and really did, like a T-chart of what school looked like 2 years ago versus what school's going to look like when we welcome kids back in a week and a half, realizing how good we had it and how good it's going to be once we get back to that normal, is important, because, we take things for granted sometimes, and being able to high five a kid or give a pound or sit down right next to a group of kids and connect. It's just, we took it for granted. I took it for granted. I think we all sitting here took it for granted. And just, trying to push through these times and trying to get back to that, and realizing that is, it's so good that we had that, and I want to get it back. So.
I would agree with both of you. I think that, and then other little things. So like the efficiency is huge. That's a huge piece for me too. Just to be able to click and have everybody right there is amazing. So I hope that we see some of that continue instead of running all around. And I think we can all agree, like, I hope that happens, not for every meeting that we have as administrators, because I certainly value getting to see everyone in person, but the running back and forth across the district, I'm hoping we can minimize that, because that has helped decrease my stress level of being out of the building all the time to be at all these other commitments. So I hope that continues. I also hope that the collaboration between all of my staff members stays as strong as it is in these last, or as it has been in these last couple of months, because they've really had to pull together and like work to support each other. I also think another positive is we all had teachers who may not have had a whole lot of tech knowledge and tech background. And I think that the things that they're going to be able to do in their classroom now, kind of rethinking the way that they teach, because they've had to think it through so much in the last couple of months, how they're delivering their instruction. I think that some of the teachers that were really struggling, even with just maybe even using their smart boards regularly, I mean, they're so far beyond where they were in the spring. So, I mean, that's a huge bonus. But I think that overall for me, I think one thing that I hope happens as a result of this, and I do think it will, is like this whole thing has been perspective changing. So it's perspective changing for me in ways that I wouldn't have thought before. Before, when you had a really rough day, it wasn't like a rough day right now. You know what I mean? So all the little minutia and the way we had all summer to schedule before. Now we're doing things in like a week. So as hard as the job was prior to this, I think we've all been challenged and given such little timelines and like things like that, that when we go back to normal, I'm going to have a new appreciation for the way we operate in normal times, because it's never going to be this bad again. And then I hope that also, that the perspective for the teacher stays that way also, because I think what you guys have said is, the same, like we've taken so many things for granted that we've had just as a part of normal school. And, I know that they are, they're dying for the kids to get back and to just have kids in front of them every day. And so my hope is that they never take for granted again how lucky we are when we're all in person and we don't have to worry about this illness and masks and bringing half in and bringing half back on another day. Like all those things, I'm glad we're bringing kids back at all right now. But when we're all back together again, I hope we never take it for granted.
Yeah, Mel, you touch on something so important with the growth. I know it was, the model from March to the beginning of June was with the expectation wasn't as strong as it is now. So when I talk to my teachers, I say you don't even realize as a professional the amount of growth that you've gone through since mid-August till mid-October. It would have taken your whole career, and at no fault to you, to grow because of PD and this, but they just dove in. The amount of growth that has happened across our district and across many districts in regards to how we rethink instruction in the classroom, the tools that we utilize, how we connect in different ways with kids. That's a big piece and a big benefit of what we're going through now too.
I'd say two things just to start to wrap up. First of all, you'll view everything through the lens of COVID-19 now. You'll view everything through the lens of March 2020 forward, whenever this thing is done, whenever we get back to normal. You'll never forget it. It will always, always be on your mind. I'm telling you right now, every day you walk into school, you'll be thinking about it. I promise you, because it's that much of a tectonic shift in what we do that it's just going to always be there. So you won't have to remind yourself, and I don't think your teachers that went through this will have to remind yourself either. And the good news of that is that it's going to get better, right? Like, as crazy and rushed as everything is right now, when you get to that point where things are back to quote unquote normal, there's going to be a sense of relief, and you're going to be better for it. As you said, you've definitely honed your craft through doing this. Another thing I'll say, if no one has said it to you, it being National Principals Month, is people should really have an appreciation for what you guys do, particularly at the elementary level. Again, because you're doing it, alone essentially. Your parents, I'm sure, do. Your kids, I'm sure, do, and God damn it, your teachers really better appreciate it, because as I've said many times on our podcast, it's rough out there. There's not a whole heck of a lot of school leaders out there that are above average, let's say. I mean, there's a lot of them out there, I guess, but the numbers are dwindling. The percentages are dwindling. And there's a lot of people that are making really bad decisions and handling things really poorly. And it's difficult, speaking as somebody who's been doing this for a long time, it's really, really, it breaks my heart to see that. And to see the work that you guys do is just so, so impressive. And your teachers really should appreciate having somebody like you leading their buildings, because you guys are absolutely crushing it. So, Nick, anything you want to add to what I just said while you're on mute?
I'm just so proud of them, John. I'm just so proud of them.
Grown up.
They all grown up. They're doing so good. No, I think I think for any principal, whether you're at the elementary level or at the secondary level, and you are, in your first couple years sitting in that seat, I think everything that we talked about today and we heard the three elementary principals talk about is so important and so crucial. So more so than any graduate class you'll take, and any induction you'll sit through, any pills, Act 45 course you'll sit through. This is the real life stuff that really matters. So we appreciate you guys being with us today.
I always say I've learned more in my conversations with you guys than I did in any grad class. So, and even going through, I just graduated in 2018, but having different principals in my cohort was what I took away the most from my grad program, was just being able to hear their stories and hear how they've handled things and what they've learned through their experiences. That's what helps everybody grow and get better. So I appreciate you guys too, sharing all of your experiences with us. Thanks for letting us be part of your tree.
Yeah, guys, no, I appreciate it. Thanks for for number one and inviting us on, here today, and your continued support. I know at the drop of a hat, we're going to get a response, whether that's, midnight or, during lunchtime the next day. It's going to be, text back. This is what I would do. And it's just great to know that we have that support, and I know I'm getting, insight from somebody who's been through it and knows. So I appreciate everything you guys do, and again, appreciate you having us on today.
Yep. Thanks, guys. Appreciate being a guest. Value the relationship I have with both of you, and I see you both as mentors, and I certainly count on that. And I value being able to come to you guys with questions that, like Travis said, I know you'll be able to answer pretty much within 10 minutes and send me on.
Pay it forward, man. Just got to pay it forward, right? You just got to pay it forward. Like I said, start identifying people, because as I just said, it's a shallow pool out there, right? You guys know I've said that a number of times. It's a shallow pool out there. So what we need is for people like you to find and hire like-minded educators who put kids first, who understand what leadership is all about, groom them, get them to go back into getting their master's degree and getting their principal cert, and show them all the positive things about being a principal. So that encourages them. As much as you hate losing them from the classroom, they're way more valuable to have those people in leadership positions than they are in the classroom. So you just got to pay it forward.
Teach them well and let them lead the way. Show them all the beauty they possess inside.
We almost made it through an entire episode without Nick singing.
I know.
It's really good one. That's a really good song.
Yeah, wouldn't be the same without it. All right, everybody. Hey, we appreciate your time. And everyone listening, please join us again this time next week or the week after on the Rockstar Principals podcast. Thanks, Mel, Sean, and Trav.